Thank you, Barb. It is a pleasure. I love this activity. I love this event. And the fun fact that was not included in that bio because I did not know that I was following Kathy Rotes until I looked at the schedule is my claim to fame is I was Kathy's RA at the University of Dubuque a number of years. So there we go. We were both actually flying some planes at that point in time too. So fantastic to spend some time with everybody. And here's what we want to take on in this conversation is that we know during times of relentless change, how we navigate this together becomes that much more critical. All the things that Kathy was just talking about now apply to how do we go through these ups and downs. And I said that before 2020, and now look at where we are this year. So consider this. Change is an event. Change management is the process in which we have to navigate through to get to what's next. Many times within our teams, we plan out a change. We have time to think about it. We plot it out. We convince whoever is part of that team that come Monday, when we roll this out, it will be done. Yet what we don't often think about is the fact that change is really a process. We announce it Monday. It's the transition afterwards that's really hard. It doesn't just happen. So maybe point number one for this morning is to consider what types of change you are enduring individually and as a team. It might be an event, something is different than it was before. But we also want to challenge in our teams to view change as a process, because we need to be able to, especially as leaders, bring people through it. Do some prep, do some planning, go through the event, and then understand what is required of us after. If nothing else, 2020 has also taught us that many times those changes come unexpectedly and rapidly. As a result, we may not get the kind of planning we wanted. Consider this. Change as the event. It's the change as a process that we need to be ready for as our teams. Adjust, think about, and prepare for whatever comes next. So for our time today, I want to focus on the individual response to change as it relates to our teams. Because if you have 5 people on your team, you have 50 people on your team, you have 400 people in your company, you've got 400 people all going through different steps of change at different paces, at different experience levels. And if we're leading others effectively, we need to meet people where they're at and bring them with us. We need to make sure that we are meeting them where they're at, not where we expect them to be. And often we get caught up, as Kathy talked about, in the emotion of the moment or what we need to get done and where we're at in the change adjustment process. One of the best things we can recognize and practice some skills in empathy and listening and seeing it from other perspectives of in between departments, in between shifts, in different projects, in different parts of the organization, to be able to hit our pause button and understand maybe what they're going through. Where are they in their own change process so that we can ask better questions, choose a better response, and then provide advice or support in helping them navigate that. So I'm going to start off with a question in the chat here. I'm going to ask you to complete the sentence, and it says, change is hardest for me when, jump in there with a comment. When is change hard for you? When does this it's just not as easy to navigate? Maybe when you're not, thank you, Kim, when you're not expecting it, when you feel out of control, when it's unplanned. Very good, right? I want you to think also, though, about I like change that. So consider that, right? What about change do you like? And I know we've still got some coming in on the first question, then that's okay. But think about that second question. when it has that tangible result, when it brings good energy, when I know the why. First, if we're going to navigate our team's response to change better, we also need to understand our own response to it, how we're impacted by it. Because especially as leaders, no matter what your job title is today, you're an influencer. And John Maxwell is the one who has said leadership is about influence, always has been, always will be. And I want you using your influence for good, not evil. That's just my sci-fi reference, right? But if you think about how you influence people, how we show up in that moment, how we talk about change, how we help others navigate it, truly helps define not only our professional presence, but our relationship building as well. Think about one last question, and that is change helps us do this at work better. What does it actually help your team improve on? Why do we need actually change? It helps us learn, it helps us grow, it helps us see things from new perspectives. We might be able to find some efficiencies, it helps us evolve. Many times, if we look back at life, it's been the hardest moments, the change filled opportunities that maybe pushed us out of our comfort zone that really probably had the biggest impact on us, the things we remembered the most. So, as we combine all of that and look at that individual response to behavior through change, right? When we think about how am I adapting to the change so that I can be more present, more empathetic, more supportive of my teammates, my boss, my customers, my clients, I want to take a moment and look at the building blocks required to actually make the change. And this comes from the Proxy Institute. It's a model called the AdCar Model. And if you got the handout in front of you, you have it there. But I just want to, even if you don't, that's okay, because I want you to think about what this means. A stands for awareness. Awareness. If I need to make a change and do something differently than I've done before, I first got to know it, right? Think about maybe a coworker or maybe somebody who's just maybe you've had some difficulty with, your boss, maybe a customer, and you say to yourself, oh, I just wish they would do this differently. I don't know. Do they know? Did they read your mind? Do they actually know you need them to do something differently than they've done before? First is awareness. If I'm going to monitor my own response to change, first I have to know that a change is needed. But the second part to that is desire. I have to wanna. Think about maybe in your family. I know in my family, there might be an individual who we go, oh, they should really make a change. First, they have to know it. Secondly, they have to want to. Goes for coworkers, goes for bosses, goes for customers as well. First, you got to know it. Second is you have to want to. But if we look at these building blocks, and the next, you have to be able to have the knowledge. You have to know how to change. You need to know what to change to. So as a leader, I want us to be able to say, here's the changes needed. Here's what's different than it was before. Now, if I know what to change to, or I know what's required of me, I need to learn a new process. I need to learn a new skill set. I need new knowledge. But I also have to have the ability to implement. Because if I can't actually practice those skills right away, I'm going to forget. You know this with software adoption. If we do some new software rollout and we train everybody through it, and we have the best intentions of rolling it out December 1st, and through maybe a series of events, or the project has gone unexpectedly off the rails, something has hit a different deadline, even with well-meaning project managers, stuff can come up. So maybe that December 1 launch is now March 1, but we trained everybody, and yet what will they remember by March 1? If I'm going to adapt to change, if I'm going to do something differently than I've done before, I have to know it. I have to wanna. I have to have the knowledge in order to do the new sets of behavior, skills, whatever that is that I'm being asked to do. But I have to be able to implement it. I have to be able to use it. And if it's months before I can put it in place, chances are I'm going to forget some stuff. You'll notice a theme anytime you go through change management materials, that there's always a reinforcement part. John Cutter is the one who has identified, and a number of other researchers have supported this, that 80% of change management initiatives fail at the reinforcement part. We plan it out, we roll it out, and then we fall back to our old ways, or we don't get it reinforced and actually integrated into the overly used phrase, but I'm going to use it anyways, our new normal. So it just helps us understand that for change to happen, for individuals to adjust to new situations, we need some pretty important building blocks to be able to do it. So as a coworker managing up to your employees, you can start with that simple model of, number one, do they know? Number two, do they want to? And if they don't want to, my response as a leader or a coworker or to my boss needs to be very different than, I don't know, do they know? If we're trying to build knowledge and the ability to implement, how do we do that differently through a change process? And how will we help champion it? Because it feels really good to us to check something off our list. All right, how many list makers do I have on the call today? And how many of you really just love to write something on your list so you can check it off, right? It feels good. So we get a change initiative through and we check it off. Reinforcement, woohoo, I got it done. But sticking with it over time. How will we make sure, how will we champion this initiative so that after a few weeks or after a few months, we don't go back to what patterns we had before? Let's take one last look at one more tool for today. The AdCar model is one, but I want to share with you another application. Many of us have experienced some form of grief in our personal lives, and you may have been exposed to a model by Kubler and Ross that describes the 7 stages of grief. And while there's big stuff in life and there's hard trials and loss that we experience, that's not what I'm going to talk about in the next 5 minutes. There's even big stuff that happens in companies, and we've got some companies going through this right now. That's not what I want to talk about in the next 5 minutes. What I want to talk about is the fact that adjusting and navigating relentless change in your team, you go through the grieving process 3 times in 20 minutes when you open up your email in the morning. You open up the first email and you get shock denial. What? Who thought this harebrained idea up? Nope, not going to work. So when you open up that email in the morning and it catches your emotion, like Kathy just talked about, and you're about to hit reply all, who thought up? No, right? That's our EQ. We're holding this back. But it's the feelings of some sort of rejection, because then we hit some sort of emotion. And maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe you read email number 1, you're like, huh? Where'd this come from? All right. What do we need to do? But there might be other emotion attached to it. And probably all of us have met somebody in our career who got angry at something and stayed angry for like 20 years. And this is where we risk getting stuck. So meet people where they're at, not where you expect them to be. If you have a team of 5 people, they're all at different stages of this cycle. What I love about the next stage, so if once we've moved through shock and denial, once we've moved through whatever that emotion is that we're feeling, we do a little bit of bargaining. And this is where we might share with someone that I'm fine. If they're going to make me do that, I'm not staying 1 minute past 5 o'clock. We're renegotiating the terms of our contributions without necessarily telling our employer, right? Where now we risk disengagement. We risk some demotivation. So I'm not openly holding us back, but I am not engaged in moving this change ahead. Well, what comes after those? So on your email in the morning, shock denial. What? Who came up? No, I don't know how we're going to do this. Some sort of, we need to get you to an upward turn. We need to get you through that cycle so that here's what it sounds like. Most often it sounds like this. Fine. What do we need to do? I'm not completely bought in, but I am not actively resisting. So, what we need to do is get people on our team through progress to acceptance. As leaders, sometimes we're not at acceptance or progress. Maybe we're even stuck somewhere a little bit earlier. We've got to understand what our best response is. What does our team need from us right now? What does my boss need from me right now? What does my customer need from me right now? And at least name it. Where am I at? Why am I stuck there? And what are the actions I need to take to make me a better version of me? It's not up to somebody else. It's up to me to recognize where I'm at. Now, especially for leaders, because I'm going to always hold you to a higher standard, that if you've got members on your team and you know they're stuck, asking questions, reaching out, offering support, helping them find the opportunity to see the new way will help. So if we bring that back together to some of my favorite, how do we help teams navigate uncertain times? I want you to consider these. I want you to consider articulating what has not changed. So consider this year. 2020 has offered some like no other. In your teams, there are some things that have not changed. You may not be working in the same spaces. You may be either geographically dispersed or now spread out in a building or on a campus differently than you were before. We're all isolated in our offices and our workspace behind masks and hand sanitizer for very good reasons. But every organization on this call today has some things that have not changed. Your commitment to safety, your commitment to customers, providing quality services, whatever it is you do. The work has shifted. It might feel different. It might look different. But articulate to your team what has not changed, because during times of uncertainty, during times of relentless change, our teams need to hold on to what's solid. And as coworkers, as leaders, we need to be able to articulate that. We also need to give people information multiple ways, multiple times. Why? Because now that you have thought a little bit more about that grieving process, you know that you process information very differently at shock and denial than you do at upward turn, than you do at acceptance. So especially when it feels like changes still come every hour, I need to make sure that I'm helping people hear it different ways, see it different ways, so that they can process it based on the stage they're at. I think it's also important to mark endings. What does that mean? Don't ding on the past. When we've had a significant leadership change, when we've made a change within our organization that maybe is hard, don't ding on the past. We shouldn't be disparaging it. We shouldn't be making comments about what it was. It was. How do we help our team move forward? We need to acknowledge losses. And what does that mean for us? Is that during that grief process, people may be feeling, but I liked that. I needed that. I preferred that. I understand that. As soon as we apply a you shouldn't feel that way, doesn't go well. Acknowledge the loss, help them understand that it was real. How do we need to be able to move forward? And giving people time, right? That's really what it takes, because as soon as we announce that on Monday, we might have had days or weeks to process that new change. Everybody hearing it for the first time on Monday is just now beginning that process. There are so many ways you can continue to show up for coworkers, your manager, your team each and every day right now. This is part of a continuous improvement process. Being better today than you were yesterday, and being better tomorrow than you are today.